What's up, everyone? We're back with another episode of the Dub Jellison podcast. Today I have a very special guest, former Purdue guard, Terone Johnson. Terone, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, man. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Thank you so much for doing this. We were chatting a little bit before we started here about your real estate endeavors. So talk a little bit about that for people who may not know what you've been doing.
Absolutely, man. I started in real estate probably in about 2017 here from California, actually investing back home in Indianapolis. I just know the market a little better than here, obviously. And then it's a cash flow market. You know, everything here is so expensive, man. My partner and I, we started out wholesaling real estate, and now we actually buy and hold real estate over in the Indianapolis market. We own over 30 properties now, like 25 of which we bought last year. We're on a roll. And we plan on trying to triple that this year coming up. That's kind of where we are with it. You know, we purchase everything in Indianapolis. We do, make sure that we're getting really good deals. We're at 75% of value on all of our properties. So it's been good to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see what you guys are doing. I know all of Purdue Nation is pretty proud of you guys. But talk about your motivation behind doing this, and when you buy the properties, like, are you flipping them, giving them to other people, selling them to other people, and things like that?
So we do a little bit of both. Mostly, we're looking to build a legacy, you know, for our kids, for our personal families, and then for our investors as well. You know, we actually have private investors that we have that actually put the money up for these deals for us, cash, and we're able to provide them a really solid return, you know, better returns than they're able to get normally, you know, in the stock market, in their IRAs. We have a lot of IRA investors. So we pretty much purchased these properties, and we have a great team in Indianapolis, so I want to give them the credit for sure. But they fixed them up for us. 9 times out of 10, these are properties that do need some work. So we're fixing them all the way up to rent ready or above rent ready in most of our properties. So then we're able to get those properties rented out and cash flow pretty nicely. So that's just something that we're pretty much doing a lot of. And then some of them we've sold, you know, as flips, obviously. But, you know, our biggest goal is to keep these properties and use this as cash flow and continue to bring our investors that return, you know, for the remainder of our lives, honestly.
Has it been harder or easier to kind of find these properties and buy them and kind of fix them up, just given the whole global pandemic and money is tight for a lot of people? So how difficult or easy has that been for you guys?
Absolutely. You know, it's crazy because, you know, 2020, like I said, I've been in it for about 3 years now. So 2020 was actually my best year in real estate. And obviously, you know, once everything started, you know, it was a pretty scary situation because it's like, okay, you can't go in to view these homes. That's a big part of the buying process, is getting in and seeing the house, you know, seeing what needs to be done. And then also on the flip side with rents, you know, coming in, obviously there was things put in place to protect, you know, tenants in order for them to pay the rent. So we did not lose 1 month's rent throughout this entire pandemic. So, you know, I'm gonna knock on wood on that because it's not over. But yeah, we've been able to actually flourish throughout it, you know, which is good for us. If we were, you know, before that, we were, the way that we found deals, you know, we actually have a marketing plan in place. We have callers that are calling for us all week, and we reach out to homeowners that might be in trouble. We've helped a lot of people out of foreclosure, you know, so they don't get that on drop on their credit. We've helped a lot of people that have, you know, inherited properties, you know, find the worth of it and see, you know, if they want to sell as well. So we started out with the wholesaling process, which is like kind of like ground level. So we would get a property under contract, and then what we would do is we would sell that contract to an end buyer like ourselves now, right? But that allowed us to figure out how to find great deals so that when we do buy them now, we know the numbers. Like I know the numbers like the back of my head, you know, now. But wholesaling allowed me to learn while making money, you know, in real estate. So that's kind of how we find deals. And it's actually been just about the same or easier to find deals during this time. And I would suggest, I would guess that, moving forward with all of these forbearance plans and things like that, that it'll be a lot of properties back on the market as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then another aspect of your guys' kind of business is the Moguls in the Making YouTube channel. So
Absolutely.
Talk about what you're building with that as well, and when you guys are going to be on like HDTV, stuff like that.
Man, it's funny that you say that. We actually spoke with Telemundo because we do a lot of lease to own properties for people that are just having trouble, man, purchasing the property, right? Mm-hmm. So if their credit is not as good, or they don't have a certain amount of reserves in order to get a loan through a bank, we've been able to do that. So Telemundo is actually asking us, to pop on their channel and do some education on the buying process and stuff like that. But honestly, we've been and I lost your question. I'm sorry about that. But what did you ask again? I'm sorry.
I was just asking about kind of like the YouTube channel and.
Oh yes, Moguls in the Making.
Like how you guys are building that and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, it's a huge thing for us, man. It's something where we can provide value to other people that's interested in getting into the real estate game. So we're breaking it all the way down. We're showing you, properties that we're fixing up. We're showing you properties that we might have took a little bit longer to rehab. We're showing you the actual process that we go to in finding a deal. And then we're going all the way from A to Z. So it's a channel that we just started. It's pretty fresh, and we've gotten a lot of credit for some of the stuff that we've shown, and it's something that we continuously are going to continue to build. We actually just had someone reach out to us and do some artwork for us and stuff like that. So it's gonna be pretty dope, man. But it's definitely something where people can in their spare time tap into YouTube, take a look at it, and say, hey, this is something that I can do, just sitting at home, just study this and kind of learn to get into the game. So that's something that's big.
And that brings me to an interesting point. Like, how did you get into this? And would you advise maybe other players that maybe didn't want to pursue a career in professional basketball, go overseas, anything of that nature? Would you advise them to kind of follow on the same path that you're going down?
Absolutely, man. You know what? It's one of the best investments that you can make. I know a lot of people are in the stock market, doing options, things like that. But this is one, investment that you can have others paying off your investment. And it's that simple. Like, these people that are renting out our properties, they're paying our mortgages down. And these are going to be free and clear properties at some point in life, right? I definitely talked to Raphael Davis already about it. I talked to Lewis. I talked to E'Twaun, JJ. JJ actually has some properties. E'Twaun does as well. So I talked to a couple guys already, that I know that they're going to be interested in as they move forward, in their careers and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be your main thing, right? It's just something to build a legacy, something that you're going to be able to leave behind for your kids. So it's definitely something that I suggest that all players across the nation, wherever you end up, look into the real estate space. But for me, I got into it actually while I was playing basketball overseas. I was in Greece playing, and I had nothing else to do, bro. To be completely honest, like we would practice in the morning, practice midday, and then I would have dinner, and then it would be nighttime, but it would be like morning time here, starting to be morning time here. It would be about 4 or 5 a.m. So I didn't really have anybody to talk to or nothing. Mm-hmm. So outside of workouts, I would dig into some real estate stuff. And there was one guy that would post videos, kind of how we're doing now, right? Mm-hmm. But back then, it wasn't that popular. But I mean, now it's like blown up, the wholesale strategy. So I bought a property when I was overseas. I bought a property in Indianapolis with my parents, with my mom. And it was a lease option, kind of what we're doing now. I didn't know the contract language or things of that sort, but it ended up becoming due. It was already due, like when I got back home, like a balloon payment, ended up losing that property. But then when I looked at the contract, I'm like, man, if I knew what I was doing, I would have made a lot of money on this deal. Like it was a chance for us to make like 45, 50,000 on it if I knew what I was doing. So after I moved to California, you know, I didn't really have a lot of friends out here. I just had, you know, my wife and my kid and her family. And so I would just dig into it, bro, like all the time, podcasts, YouTube, books, everything. And after I did my first deal with the guy out of Indianapolis, Brett Snodgrass, he kind of walked me through, and we do this with a lot of newer guys now, you know, he kind of did the deal with me, split it down the middle. You know, I went and found the deal. He had buyers on deck. He did it with me, showed me the whole process. So I made like 13,000 on my first deal. And I said, man, I'd like to repeat that. So then I, you know, I did a couple of deals with him, and then I really got serious about it. You know, my father-in-law, my wife's father, he jokes about it. He said, you know, I would be talking to Tia. He always had his headphone in his ear. You know, he'll be over there studying something, right? But he was like, now it's all paying off, you know, because that's my full thing now. Like, you know, I don't have a job. This is, you know, it's entrepreneurship for me now. So I've always wanted that. I've always, you know, as a basketball player, you know, your performance is what drives you, right? So, you know, I was working a job for a minute, but I just felt like, you know, I would like to be judged on my own performance. So like how far I push myself, you know, I would get that reward. And I feel like with this, it's kind of like the same thing. Yeah. So it kind of relates to basketball in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. And going back to your basketball career, I know you played, like you mentioned, in Greece for a year. So what made you stop playing, and kind of what was that transition period like after that?
Man, it was a crazy transition. I'll say that to begin with. But I know for me, you know, I had my son in like the last when the playoffs started in Greece. What happened? I had my son, and I wanted to fly back home, and they were like, "No, like you can't fly back home. Like you're gonna have to." But I always wanted to see my son born. Like that was my number one thing, you know, was to be there when my kids are born, right? So they ended up letting me come back like right before the game. And then I got like traded to a different team, like mid in the middle of that like transition, right? And then they released me, you know, but I still got payments. Like I was still having, you know, I was still under contract to get payments. So I was getting paid for a while I was still here in California with my kid. And then I started to, you know, train to go back, obviously. And I was getting some offers, but they were really low offers, right? And I'm like, man, I can make that like just sitting here in Indianapolis, right? If I just got a job, I felt like, you know, without having to be away from my family, you know, my dad wasn't in my life, you know, pretty much my entire life, man. So it's a big thing for me to be like almost like with my son, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now I have a daughter, but like that's you know, that was something that was huge to me. So it just made a little bit more sense for me to transition out. And I got a job, you know, and started really digging into this. And the next thing you know, this kind of blew up for me. So it ended up working out well, to be honest. But it's a hard transition, man. I didn't play basketball for, man, a year straight when I stopped because I was sick. Like I would watch all the Purdue games and stuff like that. You know, I would watch NBA games. But man, it was hard for me to get back out on the floor, you know, with the competitiveness that I have. Man, I just it hurt me, you know, to get away from the sport. But I think that's something that people should be thinking about, even while in college. I never thought about what you know what would I do once I'm done, right? You know, I know that they give you all the resources to do that. I think it's you know, advantageous for people to take advantage of that, man. Like while you're on campus, start looking at things like this. Start talking to people like me that already have a real estate business, or you know, somebody that's, you know, has their own business, or even that has a great career. Start talking to them, you know, start getting in touch with them, so that when you do make that transition, you almost have a few things that you know that you're going to want to get into, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's important for guys. I mean, take like guys like Tommy Luce, for example. Guys that are walk on, probably not going to go on to play at the next level overseas, wherever. To be cognizant of that and look up to guys like you and I mean, Ray Fell's doing his thing now. Lou Jack's doing his thing. Kind of look up to you guys and kind of get advice from you.
Absolutely, man. It's huge, bro. It's huge. Yeah, I know one player that was, and I know he's doing really good in real estate as well. And I've talked to him actually. one of the walk-ons that was there with me, Steven Toyer. I don't know if you remember him,
Mm-hmm.
but he was actually doing that stuff like while we were there, you know. So I remember him coming in, you know, kind of dressed up, said he just got his broker's license or whatever it was. You know, I'm not completely sure what it was back then, but I know that he was into some multifamily investments and stuff like that, like a year out of college, 2 years out of college, and they did really well and still continue to. So even just looking at that, it's like, man, this dude right next to me is like, you know, he's getting to something. Like, let me take a look at it. Don't just get tied up in plan A. You know?
Mm-hmm. And talk about kind of the path that you've been on. You've mentioned that you've been doing this real estate thing for 3 years now. How are you at the beginning, and how much have you grown from it, like to this point, in terms of just getting all the knowledge and kind of applying that?
Right. So, like I said, I started out just thinking flip. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to say like the average like deal on like a wholesale deal in Indianapolis is sorry about that. That's my dog.
Oh, you're good.
But but an average like wholesale deal we were seeing was about, you know, 7,500 to 12,500. Then we started kind of revving that up. We like, man, we can get deeper deals, and also our buyers trust us more now. We started to get to a point where buyers didn't even have to look at the properties. They knew that we were telling the truth. They knew everything that we gave them information wise was what it was. So we started to make, you know, 20, 30, 40,000 on those deals that we weren't touching. You know, we were just assigning the contracts to. But then we started to look at it and we started to say, okay, well, these people are, yeah, we made 10,000 on this, but these people are turning this around, making 15,000 on it, but also being able to keep this property and build their legacy, you know, build that cash flow monthly residuals. And so that's when we started saying, man, like, and honestly, like I said, I'm having that meeting tonight. That's one big thing that we're gonna go over is like, it changed our look on real estate as a whole, right? It's like, what are the bigger guys doing? You know, what are the people that are living when everybody talks about real estate investing and stuff like that, they talk about the dude that's out there, you know, drinking his drink on the beach and he's making money, right? And that's something that we looked at. We like, man, doing this, you have to come in like every day, like whatever you, no matter what, you know, you have to come in, you have to, you know, sit down, you have to start calling. Once you stop that, your money stops, right? But how we have it now, I mean, and obviously I don't do this, but like, I mean, if I don't work for a week, I'm still going to get this, you know, these residual funds that'll come in, right? But I'm still in the building stage. I feel like in this space, it gives me like a endless, like 4 years of Purdue of what I got, you know, like, it's like, I always get to feel like I need to get better. I always get that Big Ten tournament, you know, type of ordeal where I'm like trying to, you know, reach these goals that I have. And I actually look at it like that. I compare it to stuff like that, and just, man, it's I love the space, and my partner does as well. So as we continue to build, you know, next thing that we're looking to do is get into multifamily, and kind of move up from there.
Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned a couple of times about leaving a legacy. So I just wanted you to expand on that and kind of say what your vision is for leaving your legacy and things like that.
Right. So for me, it's two parts for that. You know, it's one part is obviously my family, right? So my family legacy, you know, leaving something for my kids to look at. When I was growing up, I didn't really have nothing in front of me, like as far as like entrepreneurs in our family that's like, hey, you can do this. You know, you don't have to go to school, or you don't have to, you know, do this, or you don't have to rely on basketball, rap, the streets. You know what I mean? So, you know, me and Lewis talked. Me and E'Twaun talked about this the other day. Like, our kids are going to see a different, you know, view of what we saw growing up, right? So that's something that's huge for me. Is like he plays around now. I don't know if you can see but he drew some stuff on my board right there, like a little house, you know, like he's actually interested in stuff like that now, you know, and that's stuff that I didn't really, you know, have in front of me growing up. So that was something that's huge for me. And also being able to leave them something, you know, like, you know, I've definitely got me a full-term life insurance. You know, I got like, you know, I make sure that, you know, these properties, you know, they'll be handed down in the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also that they're learning about it. So it's not like I'm handing them something that, you know, they don't know what to do with when they're older, right? So that's one big thing for me as far as family. On the flip side, it's like, and I'm here in California, and you know, we do plan on moving back to Indianapolis, but like just being in the community, man, like leaving that legacy in our community that like we're people that you can reach out to. We're people that you can learn from. We came from the same environments that y'all did. And we were able to do this. You know, it's something that you can obviously do as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the second thing, getting into the schools, getting out to, food drives, stuff like that, but also having like workshops, for kids, things like that. Hey, here's how to learn a trade. Hey, here's when you go to college, these are some things that you can learn, right? So I think that's one big thing too, is to put a stamp on the city as far as that goes. It feels a little bit different when I do it here because it's not the same, like I didn't walk these streets when I was a kid, but when I'm back home, it feels so good, bro. So I know that's something that me and my partner, we grew up literally right around the corner from each other. And never knew it though until we met each other, right? But I know that's something that's huge for us, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So when you do move back to Indy eventually, how do you want to impact maybe it'd be where you grow up, your neighborhood, or maybe surrounding neighborhoods or things of that nature?
You said, how do I want to impact it?
Yeah.
Well, for me, obviously, we're already purchasing homes in the areas, right? So being able to provide that that living that's affordable, right? Affordable living for people in the community, but also showing people, okay, these guys are making, great money too, right? These guys are they're cool. They're not lames either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not lames in the community. They're out here making some good money. They're just like us, right? And they went this route. So what is this, right? It makes people, makes kids, a little bit inquisitive of like, okay, what's going on over here? Like, but I think that's one big thing as far as like impact on the children, in the community, but also being able to provide that affordable living for our communities and be able to, we want to end up having barbershops, things like that, like strip malls, things like that, where we can kind of provide a little bit of spin on it, our own personal spin on the community as well. But also, I want to be involved more in basketball. I'm not as involved out here. I want to definitely get back into the basketball, like, coaching somehow, some way. I don't have to be crazy. I don't have to be Matt Painter, but I would love to, maybe assistant coach at my high school or something of that. So I know John Hart is doing that right now as well. And it seems so fun. I'm watching him. I'm like, man, he having fun with this. And I really miss the sport. So that's definitely something I'm looking to make an impact on as well.
Mm-hmm. That actually leads to my next question. How much college basketball, Purdue or Big Ten or nationally, are you able to catch now?
I'm a busy dude, right? but what I do definitely catch is the Purdue games. I watch all of the Purdue games for the most part, unless I'm like I was talking to you. I think the other night we were watching the Michigan game. It didn't turn out well, but like I was telling you, like, man, that's a young, good team. Like, give them a year, man, it's gonna really go down. But I'm able to watch them. I watch a little bit of the Big Ten period, but every time I can catch a game, I do. Obviously, I have all the channels for it, but for the most part, I mostly tune into Purdue though.
Mm-hmm. And what have your impressions been of the team so far this season? I know we kind of, been up and down a little bit, and then we hit our stride, that 4-game stretch, and then hit a little road bump in Michigan. But what have your overall feelings been about the season so far?
I've been on similar teams. I've been on the really good teams at Purdue, and I've been on a really bad team at Purdue, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like one thing about these dudes is that they're trying. Like, they're actually listening. You can tell that they're actually like starting to hang on to stuff, and that's why you see it's kind of like a bumpy road, but it's like they get those big wins as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's a really good group of kids. They're very young. But who's to say that stops them, right? Yeah. I think if they can continue to get some big wins, to end out this Big Ten season, man, it's going to be huge for them. But I really like the group of guys that they have. I thought Coach Painter did a really good job with this recruiting class, like as far as freshmen and the redshirt freshmen that he had. But I really like them. They have a lot of potential. Travion seems like a good. I haven't met any of besides Eric Hunter. I met him before. But I don't think I've met any of the and Thompson. I'm sorry, I've definitely met Thompson, but outside of that, I haven't really met a lot of them. But they seem to be a really good group of guys, and I really like the potential that they have, bro.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of Purdue fans obviously chat a bunch on social media and stuff like that, and I mean, we might not be top 3 in the Big Ten this year, but next year we're not losing anybody unless someone
exactly.
I mean, we're loaded for the next few years.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. So I'm gonna be ready to talk some crap.
So what do you think the ceiling for this team is? Do you think that they could contend for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament? And how deep do you think they could make it in March Madness?
That's what I was just talking to my brother about, man. You know, I think that they can definitely win that Big Ten tournament. They beat some of the best teams, I mean, in there. So, I mean, obviously, you know, it only takes, you know, a couple good games and boom, right? So it's like a tournament in itself. You know, you look at it, it's like, man, if we win these 3 games, boom, we're good, right? We make it into, but if they make the tournament, they're going to be trouble. Yeah. They're going to be trouble because we have a lot of good guards. I always say that the tournament, come tournament time, you really rely on your guards, right? And I think even with the youth, you know, that's a lot of games to be played. And I feel like that we have the legs to get out there and beat some teams that surprise some teams. And I feel like if they make it to the tournament, we'll definitely get 2 to 3 games in at the least, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, like we're young, but we also have guys that have been there for a while, been there, done that. Sasha, Eric, and Isaiah Thompson. So, I mean,
absolutely,
just lean on Trey. If he has a big game, watch out.
Exactly, man. Yeah, he's good.
So going back to your high school days, before we get into more of your Purdue career,
okay.
What was that culture of Indiana high school basketball like? I know there's that famous saying, in 49 other states, it's just basketball. So talk about that and growing up in that and then ending up at an Indiana college.
You know, it was huge, man. It was, I mean, ever since I can remember, you know, I was playing like organized basketball. Like I'm talking like, you know, making sure that you pass to the open man, you know, making sure that you know, jump stop, like that type of basketball, man. Like that started out very early. We started out, you know, me and my brother, we started out with Coach Red Taylor in Indianapolis. Then we had a few different coaches, you know, growing up, all of these coaches knowing, you know, the exact way to play good basketball. And I think that's something that's huge. Even when you go to a Purdue game, to a high school game, like the fans sound like they know what they're talking about. Like they're not just out there just hollering, you know what I mean? So growing up in that culture of high school basketball, man, it was like, that was one thing. Like I just remember the bands and stuff like that when I was a kid. I used to be like, you know, I can't wait till I'm playing, you know, warming up under those bands and hearing the bands play, and it's my team, you know, at the top of the state. And next thing you know, it was, right. So that was something that was huge for me. And once I got there, like my goal, because I committed to Purdue my sophomore summer, I believe. So I was able to kind of focus on, you know, being a high school basketball player after that, right? Getting better. But it was like, I got to win state at this point. Now I have to win state, right? So that was a huge thing for us. We ended up actually doing it, obviously. Me and my brother, and we had, you know, Devontae Smith-Revere on there, Darius Latham, Pat Ingram. We had a pretty good team. I want to say our starting 5 all went D1, one for football, but he was an Indiana All-Star as well. So I think, you know, that just goes to show that like Indiana basketball is serious, man. But yeah, that was huge for us to finally get that state championship, you know, in a winning culture, you know, North Central basketball.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I remember even back when I was young, you guys were absolutely loaded. It was insane. It really wasn't even fair. But
man, that was crazy.
Are there any games or matchups against guys that you came up with that stick out to you from high school or AAU ball?
Matchups with some guys. Let me think about that. You know, obviously so I didn't play much my freshman year, but I would say that was a big year for me because I had actually an ACL surgery coming into my freshman year. So, and then obviously I wasn't going to play in front of Eric Gordon. He was the shooting guard at the time, right? It was his senior year. So I didn't play a lot my freshman year, but I do remember us playing Jeff Teague and those guys. I was a really big fan of them because I actually was in their township before I moved over to Washington Township. And then I got to see every day Eric Gordon, but like when we played them, when we played E'Twaun and those guys, that was a huge game for us. You know what I mean? But after that, you know, as far as like me, like our matchups, I would have to say we had some great matchups. People forget that, you know, Gary Harris and them was in our conference. It was always a crazy, crazy matchup with Lawrence North. They had the towers back then. They were so tall. But also, you know, I like those games versus East Chicago. That was when Kawan Short, you know, was still playing basketball. It was him and it was after E'Twaun left, you know, it was him and it was they brought in Angel Garcia. I don't know if you remember him as well.
He sounds
but he was a tall, lengthy guy. You know, he had some mix up. He was about 6'11", man. He was really good. He was a Spanish guy that came in and played for East Chicago. He ended up going to Memphis, but I just remember those matchups was crazy, man. So, man, it was a lot of good battles. Obviously, the Pike battles was like that was our real rival, you know, Pike and Lawrence North. So Marcus Teague and those guys, you know, we laid it down on them as well. But and you know what, they gave it to us at times too, you know. But I know for me, it was so serious to win back then, man. It was crazy. Like I couldn't sleep if I didn't win. Like in high school, I hated to see the newspaper the next day.
I mean, you just name dropped like 7, 8 dudes that are in the league and one that's in the NFL. I mean, that just speaks to how deep Indiana's high school basketball really is. All the talent that goes out.
Man, I say it all the time. I tell people all the time. I forget sometimes. I'm like, dang, I forgot. You know, like I just left out Yogi just now. I left out AJ, right? I left out a lot of guys. So it's like sometimes I'm like, dang, Trayvon. You know, we played against a lot of these guys in high school, and just those battles was crazy. You can only imagine, right? They had their own school, you know, their own right. So it was fun, and while it lasted, absolutely.
And then talk about, you've mentioned him a couple of times, your little brother, Ronnie. So talk about being able to play with him at North Central and then at Purdue eventually, and how special that was for you guys.
You know, it was super special for us, man. We always battled, right? Our whole lives battling, whether it's downstairs, you know, in the basement, or whether it's, you know, outside on the concrete. We always battled. And to be honest, I would say it was probably a bigger to see from my mom, right? Because she was like waiting for that moment for us just to be able to play together. Because he would always play up and play with me, you know, certain AAU teams. But once he kind of evolved into his own player, as far as like being able to play high school basketball, I know my mom really loved that time. You know, like our whole family used to show up at the games and cheer us on. But yeah, that was something that was huge for us, man. I know there was one year that I want to say it was going into my junior year, you know, we made a pact, was like, bro, there's just no excuses no more. Like whatever goes down, like there's no excuses, you know what I mean? So if we lose, it's our fault. You know, if we do this, it's our fault. So going into that year, man, we really started to pick it up. And then, you know, he wasn't highly recruited when I went to college, right? But after my junior year, after my sophomore year, he was highly recruited, right? At the end of that season, it was him, Devontae, you know, they actually did really good. I remember after a game, they played against Gary Harris and them in like the semifinals or regional or something like that. And me and John Harder went back, and Coach Owens was banging our phones. He was like, "Hey man, your brother look good. You know, your brother looking good." And I'm like, "You trying to throw a hint or what?" But nah, but yeah, it was good to get him, you know, to be able to play on the higher level with me at Purdue, man. Just being in that backcourt together, that was some of the funnest times of my life, right? On and off the court, man. You know, so just having your brother there with you, it was pretty crazy. I know my family really enjoyed it because we was able to stay in the state, so everybody would come up to the games, man. It was a good deal for us for sure.
I think I remember that game, if my memory serves me right. I was there. It was actually at Noblesville, which is my hometown.
Right.
Gary Harris said that.
That was the second. Yeah, that was the second year.
In sectionals. That was Ronnie's senior year, I think.
Yeah, it was. So I was talking about his junior year,
Mhm.
but his senior year, yeah, me and John was actually at that game together as well, and he hit that half court shot, ESPN top 10. I think that was crazy because when he put it up, I said, because we were like looking down, we were all the way up, man. That game was packed out,
Mhm.
and as soon as he threw it up, bro, I saw it. I said, that's online, that's going in, and it definitely went in.
I remember going and seeing him play. I was in 6th grade maybe, and
Okay.
he dunked on one of my friends, Jake Mills, who was a freshman
Oh, word.
playing varsity on Noblesville. But I mean, he was just a dog. Seeing him, and I went there because Ronnie, obviously,
Got you.
going
Right.
as a Purdue fan. And then I sent you that picture the other day when I met
Oh
you.
yeah.
When I met you and Ronnie, that was a right before your senior game, I believe.
Oh, okay. At Purdue. Okay.
But that was at Noblesville again. We went to the section. I forget who was playing. Um,
Right.
but
Yeah, I'm trying to get back to that size, man. You see me now. I'm trying to get back down to that size, man. When you sent that picture, I said that's motivation right there, man.
I just remember like that for me. Like that was the coolest thing ever. Back when I was like 12 or 13, I think. And I
Right,
mean, I
right.
saw you were at the concession stand, and I like look. I'm like, is that Terone Johnson? So, and you were like, you like order like a hot dog or something. I was like, Terone, can we get a picture? And you were like, sure. So then I met you. I was super pumped about that. And then I went when I was walking out. My mom was picking me up. I saw Ronnie too. So I saw you guys
Oh
like two
man.
different things, but you guys weren't together for some reason. I don't know why. So I
Oh,
got
okay.
I got a picture with Ronnie too. Um,
That's what's up,
yeah,
bro.
it's kind of crazy to see everything come full
It
circle.
is.
Do you have any good stories about you and Ronnie growing up? Maybe, I mean, AAU, growing up when you guys were little kids, high school at Purdue, anything?
um, I have some good ones, I think one that just kind of pops to mind is we used to play basketball like in our neighborhood, like in the backyard. But it would always, the weather over there, it's always a
Yeah.
time of year where it snows and stuff like that. So we're not able to play. So we would channel that to downstairs in the basement, right? So we had a court that we would put like up on this table. And my mom would always say, do not put that court up on the table. Y'all gonna end up getting hurt, right? So Ronnie, one time we was all playing down there. We found a way to play 2-on-2 in a small basement, bro. And I remember him just like he went in, it was getting serious down there. Now, mind you, we like 10 years old, like
Yeah.
I'm not sure, right? So he ended up like he went so hard, like trying to go left. You know how he's so fierce left. He went so hard, bro, and like hit his head on that table that she told us do not play on. And he ended up busting his head open, and like we had to rush him to the hospital and stuff like that. But I was like, and then afterward he was like, y'all trying to play again tomorrow? Like, I'm like, oh man, it was funny, bro. But yeah, that was kind of a funny memory for me. We had so many memories playing basketball, obviously, because we used to, play in the neighborhood at school. Like we would leave practice sometime and go and play like open runs places and stuff like that. So we got so many funny stories, man. But I think that one sticks out to me because it's like it just takes you back to that time where it's like basketball still meant so much to us just in that basement, right?
Yeah.
As opposed and then next thing you know, we was on a big stage playing in the Big Ten and stuff like that. But yeah, man, we had some great stories and some great times for sure.
I mean, that's a dream for a lot of people, a lot of guys, actually, I should say.
Right.
Having a little brother that, I mean, pretty equal to you as a basketball player, very highly
Right.
recruited, highly thought of, and being able to go at it 7 days a week, 24/7.
Right, exactly, bro. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. We actually had some good battles at Purdue too. You know what I mean? Like just in practice, like they would put him on a different team, sometimes and stuff like that. So he had to come in and earn his spot. It wasn't given to him. You know what I mean? And that was something that I always told him, like before he even came to Purdue, is like, bro, just because I'm your brother don't mean that you're gonna be able to come in and just play. You know what I mean? Like you got to earn it. So we had a lot of good battles. I had to teach him, who Big Bro is and stuff like that. Another story, maybe a matter of fact, another story I have is that when he was like a freshman in high school. You know, they were on the JV team. It was him, Tyler Corley. They was pretty good. Pat Ingram, all of them. They were on the JV team, but they would play varsity as well. And you know, I was obviously the captain of the team and stuff like that. So for us, it was like I took my leadership serious, right? So when they came in the room, you know, they left our locker room, which is the varsity locker room, like super dirty, and we was like, what the? Because we always made sure that like we picked up all of our stuff in the varsity locker room. That when coach come in there, we're not gonna be running and stuff because the locker room is all dirty and stuff. So they came in there, you know, cocky little freshmen and stuff like that, you know, running the hall, freshman halls and stuff. And they left all their stuff in there. And we was like, bro, y'all got to get that out of here. Like, it's not going to happen, you know. And they start talking stuff to us. We end up all start almost fighting and stuff in the locker room, right? We end up getting into it with them. But they ended up cleaning it up. But it's funny to this day because when my head coach, Coach Mitchell, he came out here for our wedding. And he was like, man, y'all never knew this, but I heard that entire exchange from my office. And he was like, get Ronnie's ass. Get him. He was like, it was funny, bro. But yeah, but just like stuff like that, bro, it's kind of crazy because you gotta separate, like, you know, him being my brother for him being like the point guard of the team, right? Mm-hmm. So like, you know, most likely like the point guard, you know, they have a leadership role whether they want to be it or not, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of separate that as well, but it was some good times for sure.
Mm-hmm. And how weird was it to see kind of, I mean, obviously you spent all 4 years at Purdue, and then Ronnie ended up at 3 different schools. Three great schools actually. So how weird was that to see just kind of like the different paths that you guys took?
You know, it was kind of weird because when it came down to it, like I really had no say so in it. It was kind of him and my dad, you know, and they kind of went back and forth about that whole thing. And I just remember the day that they actually decided, like we was at a basketball game or something like that. And I know they went to go talk to Coach Painter, and they came back and told me. And I was just, you know, I wasn't happy about it at the time just because I didn't really have a say so. You know, they didn't really ask for my opinion at the time. You know what I mean? And I just had certain things that I had to say. You know, that could have probably you know had him make a different decision. Whether he would have made that decision or not, I just felt like I wasn't able to give my opinion on it, right? Mm-hmm. But you know, obviously he ended up moving on. I thought if he would have stuck it out there, man, they would have been really, really, really good. And I just, you know, he didn't get to see the parts of Purdue that I got to see, right? Yeah. So my first 2, even my third year wasn't that bad. But like he didn't get to see like the, you know, the tournament appearances and stuff like that. And if I'm not mistaken, he never made it to the NCAA tournament. So I wish he kind of would have stuck around, obviously, and then just to see him go, you know, school to school. I know that he ended up transferring to Houston, and then his last year he ended up playing at Auburn, and he enjoyed it. You know, I'm not going to say he didn't, but I just thought that, you know, I wanted him to stick it out at Purdue. You know what I mean? But, you know, whatever was best for him, that's all I wanted, you know, for him. So if he was happy wherever he was at, you know, I'm always going to rock with, you know, with where my brother is happy at. So, but it was kind of hard for me to see.
Mm-hmm. And we don't have to get into it too deep. But was there something that like he didn't really feel comfortable at Purdue with you not being there? Like, was there a reason that he transferred in the forefront, I guess?
You know, that, like I said, I really didn't have much. You know, I know that him and Coach Painter were butt heads a little bit. Ronnie's a little bit of, how do I say it? Like, he's more of like his communication is different, right? So the way that, you know, Coach Painter would talk to me, you know, might be different than how he would, you know, be able to communicate with Ronnie, right? He was a little more headstrong, if it makes sense, right? But like point guards are, I think Lewis was the same way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He just used it in a different direction. But I just thought they weren't on the same page. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I feel like Ronnie felt like he could do a little bit more for the team. You know what I mean? Like he felt like, you know, there were certain instances where they were kind of holding him back. It's kind of this is what I'm thinking of now. To be honest, we never really even discussed it really. But, you know, from what I saw, like, you know, they were butting heads throughout the season and stuff like that. You know, Coach Painter would want him to play a certain way. He wanted to play a different way, right? That fast down pace, which he was allowing him to actually play a lot, but the rest of the team had to catch up with that. So like it wasn't working out. So he was kind of, veering them in a different direction. I just don't think he liked to be held back at all, right? And so when that went down, I think even at the conversation that they had, the conversation was that, Coach Vayner was saying like we would still have you here, like, if we can come, we'd be on the same page. I know that was one thing that was discussed. But I don't know like a specific it wasn't like something specifically happened where it's like, oh man, like he has to go. But I think they just were butting heads so bad that he felt like, going into that third season that he wasn't going to be able to play his game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I was sad when he left. It was like a week or two after I met you guys, actually.
Right. And it was kind of weird because he had a lot of success, actually. Like even there, like he was, averaging a solid amount. He was doing pretty well. Obviously not with the winning record, but obviously it was due to come. You saw what happened, right? So things turn around. But I wasn't in position, like the way that I'm speaking to you now is I wasn't like in position to speak like that back then, right? Mm-hmm. I was kind of trying to figure out my next move and things like that. And I wish I had a little bit more say so, but at the time I didn't.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of you and Ronnie. I've followed you guys.
Appreciate it, bro.
Especially him, just because he was able to play a little bit longer. But
right.
So I wanted to ask you if anyone on the team or this team currently reminds you of anyone that you played with or teams that you were on at Purdue.
Let me see here. Who do we have? Actually, Eric Hunter reminds me a little bit of Kelsey Barlow a lot. Like he's super athletic. He's long. He's fast. And the way that he defends, he actually does remind me of Kelsey Barlow a lot. Like I was like, he kind of got a little bit of Kelsey in him. You know what I mean? And then I really like the freshman, and I'm going to lapse his name right now, but the one that just hit the game-winning shot.
Jaden Ivey.
Ivy, yes. Like supposedly he's my cousin's cousin, so maybe we were related somehow. But yeah, Reese Cheatham is my cousin, and he's at all the games. Like even now, like he said, that's his cousin. So, but he reminds me a lot of like players like me and E'Twaun, but more athletic. Like the dude gets up, bro. Like he's really really athletic. So I really like his game, but as far as like slicing and dicing and stuff like that, getting into pockets where other people can't score at, staying active, like I feel like he reminds me a lot of that, as well as like Carson as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that he does is just like, all right.
Yeah, but that's what I feel like you would get out of, like, sometimes people see me throw up this weird floater, or I get in the lane, do some weird layup, and they like, okay, we'll take it, and then E'Twaun, he'll probably shoot something that, or make a move that most people wouldn't make, and it's like, no, okay, yeah, we good. So, and there's players like that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's good players. When you're a good player, a lot of the times you're gonna make moves that 9 times out of 10, other people wouldn't be able to make. But I think he got, man, some tremendous potential, man, going into these next seasons. And the redshirt freshman as well. I think he's from Northern Indiana. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, but I like his game as well.
Brandon Newman from Valpo.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Well, so
he's really good too.
Absolutely, going to definitely be the glue for sure.
And then kind of going back to your time at Purdue, what was it like those first 2 years? I mean, you came into a Final Four caliber team. Obviously, Robbie got hurt that year. But what was it like to play with those Baby Boilers and have all that success in the first couple of years?
Man, it was crazy. Like you said, Robbie got hurt my freshman year, like first day of practice, I want to say. And that was crazy. So everybody was kind of like, talking down on it. So it gave us something to actually fight for, because, at first preseason, we were ranked number 1. But also what it gave me is like, I started all the way over. So I went from being like one of the best in Indiana, right, to like, hey, these dudes are giving it to you. You know what I mean? So I had a good, summer and like open gym, stuff like that. But once practice started, I was like, whoa, this practice is serious. You know what I mean? And I feel like if I, jump to my junior and senior year, I feel like those freshmen didn't have that. It was only just me and DJ for the most part, right? And so I feel like when they came in, it was a bit different. But having that success, my freshman year, it really had me hungry for my sophomore year, and I ended up hurting my knee going into my sophomore year. And man, that was I was so hyped. Like, in the summer, I was working super hard, bro. Really shaved off a lot of pounds, really got like in really good shape, speed and agility wise, condition wise. And then I was playing basketball in Indianapolis, and hurt my knee, right? So I had a meniscus tear. So like the first like quarter of the season, I actually wasn't starting or anything like that. I was coming off the bench, getting limited minutes, really, and I was really in a bad place. I'll be honest to say that. And then I just stuck with it though. I stuck with it. And then by the end of that year, man, we started to really gel. With me and Lewis, we was like the slicer and dicers, and then we had like Robbie, we had DJ, we had Ryan. And we had Kelsey, we had John, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like we had a great team, and it ended up like coming together right before the tournament and stuff like that too. And then I ended up like leading us in scoring like for like like almost like the whole end of the season. And me and Robbie really started to like, push each other and kind of build off of each other. So that was huge. And I ended up having a huge like end of my sophomore year, and we made the tournament. It was we won a good game in the tournament. We really should have won the second game versus Kansas. I mean, I don't even like to think back to that game. That was crazy. We was up, I think, with 1 minute left. Yeah, we was up like 5 or something like that with 1 minute left, and ended up losing the game, bro. But yeah, that was the best. I would say that was probably the best years of my career there at Purdue when I look back on it, just because of the success that we had. But obviously, I ended up making, all conference my junior and senior year. But, for me, it's always been about winning. Like, it's not about the individual accolades. So, I was really struggling my junior and senior year, like, as far as like mindset wise, right? Mm-hmm. Because I just couldn't get certain people to buy in, bro. Like, and then it kind of took me off track. To be honest, I just started to kind of like, man, it is what it is. Like, they're not gonna buy in and stuff like that. So, but I will say, I enjoyed my entire 4 years there, like period. I loved playing, in Mackey Arena, man. That was one of the you can't beat it. I've been in every arena, bro. I've been in every arena, and it's crazy in Mackey, bro. So, thanks to those fans, all those years, the fans are, man, great. Like, even when I went back a couple years later, I didn't end in the best way, but like, I was received in great arms, bro. Like, when I went to the game, people were really, and I was surprised. I was actually surprised, how people received me, coming back. So I really appreciated that, and I still, remain a Boiler, bro. I got it everywhere in here. You see me back there. I got I can't flip the camera around, but I got my man cave thing right there. I got all this Purdue stuff all over. So they say if you come to my house, man, you know I went to Purdue for a fact.
So you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but is there anything that you can attribute those struggles to in your next or your last 2 seasons, your junior and senior seasons? Obviously, it was kind of a far cry from your first 2 years.
Right. It's a saying like about company guys, right? So people that's like for the program, you know what I mean? And I felt like we had more talent my junior year than we had my sophomore year. And about can match the talent that we had my freshman year, right? But they weren't right for Purdue. And that's just what it was. Like, I seen Coach Painter's system where I would say that, there was times when me and Coach Painter butted heads during the season. He'd be like, come on, like, that. I'm like, man, I seen it work. Like, I know this, but it's just not. Like, it's not working with these guys, you know what I mean? So it's a bit different, you know what I mean? And I try to hold people accountable and stuff like that, because you can ask anybody, back home or whatever. Even my sophomore year, like, I was more of a leader as well, even my sophomore year at Purdue, right? Yeah. But it was hard. It was hard, bro. And I think that was attributed to, and I'm not gonna say I'm putting this on Coach Painter, but like, and I think he's actually said this before, is that like, the guys that he brought in was not like Purdue guys, and then they weren't willing to work to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, right after, I left, you can see the turn. You get what I'm saying? You can see the people that bought in, and the next thing you know, right back to success, right? So I think that was kind of what and these players, bro, were great players, like talented as can be. It just wasn't for the right program for them. You get what I'm saying? Like really good players. It used to really frustrate me because I'm like, bro, our team is so good, but we just cannot get it together. You know what I mean? And some games we'll show flashes, we'll beat good teams, and the next game, we'll lose to a team that we shouldn't lose to, or that we needed to get a win on, or, we'll break down in the middle of a game. It's like, damn, like, come on. But yeah, I think that's what it was attributed to, not to say the least, to none of the players, but I just feel like a lot of people wasn't a good fit for Purdue.
Mm-hmm. And I know we're getting kind of short on time, so just a couple more for you.
We're good.
I want to get some good Coach Painter stories because all the former Purdue players I've had on have told me some pretty funny things about him.
Okay. Let me think of one. Okay, yeah, I got one. I got one for sure. So let me think which one. I'll give you two. So every time we would play IU, right? Coach Painter, and I don't know if he still does this, but like in the gym, they would turn on the radio, right? Really, really, really loud because the crowd would be really loud. Obviously, this is like a serious game for them. And one of the loudest games that we probably gonna play that season, right? So he would turn it on blast. So like literally you can't hear me if I'm like right next to you sometimes, right? So it forced us to communicate, all of that stuff, right? And then we had lost the game before that to IU. And so he was playing it, people would just go, as soon as it gets loud, it's like people just forget everything. Like it's loud, and then next thing you know, people like they arguing and stuff, you can't see. So I remember him cutting off that. He's like, get the fuck out. Everybody get out. And like and then like people were like, man, dang, he's like, I'm serious, get out. He goes to the everybody started like, they're like, go, because I'm like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Bro, there was like a rack of balls right there. He just started throwing them at us. Get out. He's like, get out. Man, it was crazy. I was like, we better go before he put us on the line too. He's like, man, he could have just said, go run. You know what I mean? But I'm like, get out. Like he's saying, get out. But we was all confused. We was like, what's going on here? Like, he's really pissed. Like, it wasn't even for something that was like super big, but I think it was the fact that we had just lost to IU the time before. And he was like, we not about to come into this game and lose to these fools because y'all don't want to listen. You know what I mean? So that was one. And then another was, I remember there was a time where I want to say it was when, who was that got in trouble? It was when DJ and Kelsey Barlow got in trouble. I think that was my sophomore year. I think.
Sophomore? Or I think it might have been in between your sophomore and junior. I'm not sure.
No, it was my sophomore year because we came back from playing Illinois. I remember. And they got in trouble. And we actually played IU going into that next game as well. This was crazy. But I just remember us coming back to practice and he was like, we didn't know, we already knew we was in for it, bro. When it came down to it, right? So Kelsey was gone, DJ was back in practice and stuff like that. But it was like, dang, what's to come? Because I was there that night. I wasn't there when all of everything happened, but I was there. I was around before that. It was Kelsey's birthday. You know what I mean? Cool. So we all went out. And I remember him like putting us on the line, bro, and we were just running. And I'm looking at him like, Coach. I remember saying, Coach, like, what's up? I was making my running times and stuff. So I'm like, I felt like I was about to start failing. Like, he's like, you wasn't saying that last night? He's like, you wasn't saying that last night, was you? I'm like, I couldn't even say nothing back to him. I just kept running. But every time somebody would do something, he would be like, go up and touch the wall, like run, go. He'd be like, go run. So he's sending people up the up the stairs to run. And I remember back then, you know, Lou had kind of like a foot problem and all that too. And he was like, take your treatment bike, whatever you need to do, but take your butt up to the top of that thing and run up there and touch the top of those stairs. It was funny, man. But like looking back on it, he was completely right. You know what I mean? But it was just those times was definitely funny times, man. I can't say it wasn't. But not in the moment, man. We were struggling. But yeah, he has some really good stories.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had the honor of having Coach Payne on here, and I think he's the best.
What's up.
He's the best coach in the country, hands down. He doesn't get the love nationally, but I mean, he's just the best. Like, there's really nothing you can say. You know what I mean?
Just to kind of cap that off, like I text him, you know, from time to time we talk and stuff still, right? And you know, I always tell him like it's crazy, but I run my business almost how you run how we ran the Purdue program, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's family oriented, you know what I mean? We have goals that we're trying to reach, and we play by the numbers. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. And so I think that's something that I learned, that like some people go to different programs, like they don't learn those type of things, right? So this program is, you know, it's backed by, you know, proof, you know what I mean? It's backed by numbers, but it's also a family environment, you know what I mean? Like everybody is together. We don't have, you know, from everyone from the star player to the manager is respected, right? Everybody is expected to do their job as well, right? And I think that's how I run my team still to this day, like my real estate team to this day. You know what I mean? So when you can get great knowledge from a coach on the court, and then you can get that from off the court as well, because like we had some off the court conversations that it was just like, dang, I really learned from this dude. You know what I mean? Like I would never, you know, even though all the problems that he had with my brother, you know, with my dad, whatever, I never lost the respect for him. You know what I mean? Like I always had that respect for him. I thought that he was always there for me. And I feel like he's a wonderful coach, bro, for a fact.
Yeah, I mean, that's for real. So I know you got a meeting to run to, so I'm gonna wrap this up here, but it was an honor to have you on. I've been looking up to you since I was 12, 13, 11 maybe. Like,
absolutely.
So it's
I appreciate it.
It's awesome to get to chat with you for a little bit. I mean, this was probably my favorite podcast I've done so far. So
that's what's up, bro. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, and honestly, I appreciate you having me on. I see what you're building here. I see that you working hard at it. You're bringing on some respectable guests, man. And like I said, I tapped into the last one with Lou. I'm like, yeah, I'm picking, just for the record, I'm picking E'Twaun over Carson, just so if anybody has to ask, I'm picking E'Twaun, man. Smooth for sure, man, because we have some battles in practice, man. That dude is crazy. But yeah, that, you know, I feel like you're building something here that, you know, makes sense. And obviously a lot of like the Boiler family, you know, would like to see certain guests come on. I feel like you're bringing them to the forefront. So, man, I appreciate you for having me on. And I definitely respect the brand, bro.
Thank you so much. Hey, keep up the good work. Stay safe. Whenever you're back in Indy, let me know.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, I will. All right, man. Take it easy.
Yep. Take care.